Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, Text 42. What is difficult to achieve for determined men who have taken refuge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet? His feet are the source of sacred rivers like the Ganges, which put an end to the dangers of mundane life. Purport. The words Yair Ashritas Tirtha Padas Charana are significant here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Tirtha Pada. The Ganges is called a sacred river because it emanates from the toe of Vishnu. The Ganges is meant to eradicate all the material distresses of the conditioned souls. For any living entity, therefore, who has taken shelter of the holy lotus feet of the Lord, nothing is impossible. Kardama Muni is special, not because he was a great mystic, but because he was a great devotee. Therefore it is said here that for a great devotee like Kardama Muni, nothing is impossible. Although yogis can perform wonderful feats, as Kardama had already displayed, Kardama was more than a yogi because he was a great devotee of the Lord. Therefore he was more glorious than an ordinary yogi. As is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, out of many yogis, he who is a devotee of the Lord is first class. For a person like Kardama Muni, there's no question of being conditioned. He was already a liberated soul and better than the demigods, who are also conditioned. Although he was enjoying with his wife and many other women, he was above material conditional life. Therefore the word Vyasanachaya is used to indicate that he was beyond the position of a conditioned soul. He was transcendental to all material limitations. Kim durapadanam tesham pumsam udama chetasam yairashitas tirtha padash charano vyasanachaya. What is difficult to achieve for determined men who have taken refuge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet? His feet are the source of sacred rivers like the Ganges, which put an end to the dangers of mundane life. Well, this verse is quite powerful because it gives us the absolute indication of the whole point of this Kardama Muni pastime, and also about power, also about shelter, refuge. Everything is here. This one verse. There are many who are taking up yogic powers, yogic practices to become very powerful. But here it is said, there's nothing difficult for a devotee to achieve. Although one may be very impressed by the powers of Kardama Muni, these powers are, practically speaking, nothing for a devotee to achieve, a determined man. And Kardama, he was not attached to these powers. In fact, he didn't even display any of them until there was some opportunity to do so in order to fulfill his service. He had to produce some progeny. It was a service. He required that wife to do it. So, although he was seemingly engaged in a mundane way, in fact, it was all for the service of the Lord. Now, seemingly means only from an outsider's point of view. From an insider's point of view, it was not strange. He was given that service, so he did it in the same detached way he would do every other service for Krishna. And, by the way, he had all these mystic powers, so he used them for Krishna, for making that service very nice. And, therefore, we should understand that a devotee is not attached to any of these things, although he may use them. If the need is there, he may walk away from them too. So, now we find that this statement is a very, very important statement, powerful statement. What is difficult to achieve for determined men? This is a very important statement. Kim durapadanam tesham pumsam udama chetasam. What is difficult to achieve for determined men? Now, we are not just speaking here about just somebody with determination, because there are plenty of materialists in the world who are very determined. But what we mean, what is being stated here, is that Yai Ashrita Tirtha Pada, who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. What is difficult for determined men who have taken the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord to attain? There's nothing difficult for them to attain. There are many determined men, but they may not attain anything. Because they must get what they are earned according to the law of karma. But what is difficult for one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord? What is difficult? For those who have taken shelter of Krishna, nothing is difficult. Everything is possible. If Krishna wants it so, then it's possible. The impossible becomes possible when Krishna wants it so. Krishna can empower anybody to do unlimitedly unbelievable things if he wants. And yet, if he wants, a greatly powerful person can't accomplish the slightest thing. It is up to Krishna. What Krishna wants. We are simply meant to fulfill Krishna's desires. Whatever he wants, we shall do. Whatever the Panchatattva wishes for us to accomplish, we will accomplish. And if they do not want us to accomplish, for some reasons of their own, perhaps we are filled with unlimited pride, stubbornness, inability to see beyond our own selves, we are criticizing everyone all the time, fault finders, unable to control our senses, unable to be peaceful, unable to have any devotion to Krishna, well then, we shall not accomplish anything. Or we shall accomplish that which they want us to accomplish and nothing more. In any case, everybody is the slave of the Supreme Lord. Everybody is totally controlled by the Supreme Lord. Just like the planets are controlled in their orbit. Specific orbits, they're all controlled. Just like a bull is controlled by a ring in the nose. Here's a very good example, because bulls are very powerful. But they're controlled by a little ring in the nose. If you just tug a little bit, then they go this way, they go that way, because they don't like pain in the nose. Similarly, all the planets, which are also very powerful, are also similarly controlled like that. Now, everybody is controlled like that. But some are used by Krishna to do wonderful things. And some are used by Krishna just to take care of themselves. Because that's what they want. Krishna is engaging everyone, but he engages them according to their desires. When there's desire there, and somebody has his particular desire, then Krishna will engage you according to that desire. Krishna is helping you satisfy your desires. If Krishna does not help you satisfy your desires, you could never do so. It is not he who takes responsibility for it, but we should not say like that. Because he simply does it according to our desire. Therefore, we take the reaction, not him. We must suffer the reaction, not Krishna. It's not his fault. Sometimes people use this as a means to say that Krishna is responsible because he's the one who made me act. No, it's not my fault, it's his fault. He makes me dance as he likes, so it's all his fault that I'm doing all these sinful activities. But this is foolish, because it is not Krishna's fault. Krishna engages you according to that which you want. You want to do things in a certain way, so Krishna will engage you in that way. Everybody is acting according to his desires. And if one, for instance, is filled with too much pride and dog stubbornness to live in a certain way in this material existence, then Krishna will cooperate. Krishna is not envious of anyone. He's not going to say, now you should get nothing. Because you're stubborn and proud, now I give you nothing. No, Krishna does not mind. He's not envious. He says, I give you, take. But reaction will come. Because everything you do makes reaction. So reaction will come. You can't avoid that. So Krishna will allow, but reaction will be there, and you must suffer that too. And Krishna will allow the reaction too. It's not that if you come and cry to Krishna, oh, I acted like this, and you let me do it, so please take away all the reactions. No, Krishna let you act, Krishna will let you get reaction. In this way you will enjoy or suffer strictly under your own energy. Desire, energy of desire. Therefore, one has to learn how to act in such a way that there's no reaction. Akarma. Akarma means action which brings no reaction. And when one acts in this way, simply with the desire to satisfy spiritual master and Krishna, and not committing offenses, not doing things in a way which causes trouble to others, when one does things in a very Krishna conscious fashion, then he will get the great blessing of being spiritually enlivened. And for such a person who's 100% engaged in Krishna's service, what is there difficult to attain? He can attain anything. Whatever it is that Krishna wishes that he may do, he can do. All wonderful things may be done by him. Very, very difficult to attain. All wonderful things may be done by him. Now, it is just a question of acting according to Krishna's desires. Now, why wouldn't we? Who but a fool would want to avoid acting in ways which satisfy Krishna? Who but a fool would avoid trying to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord? After all, those lotus feet are the source of the sacred rivers like the Ganges, which alone can put an end to the mundane life. If you just take bath every day in the Ganges, you become purified. And that brings you on well on the path of freedom from birth and death. So Krishna's lotus feet are the source of such rivers. And if we take shelter of them, then we are having a very good refuge, a very good shelter, a very good possibility to free ourselves from every kind of conceivable material contamination, just by taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. So this we should do. We must learn to be freed from contamination. We are so contaminated. If something happens we don't like, then immediately we're just making all kinds of problems for others, criticizing, making disturbances. As soon as there's something we don't like. This is the proof of our contamination. We're selfish. And this selfish, self-centered nature is the biggest contamination. It is the one that puts us in the material world. I want to enjoy. I want to control. Me, me, me. That's what we say. And we say like that because we're fools. We don't have sufficient developed knowledge and experience. Now, our understanding, I want to be enjoying in this material world, is based on the self-centered bodily conception of life, where one thinks about himself, in other words, his body and the senses of the body, and wants to enjoy like that. But in fact, one who has such a selfish conception, he is never going to go back to Godhead because he'll never take shelter in Krishna. He'll think, why should I? He'll say, what is the use of taking shelter in Krishna? What will I get from it? Unless they say, I will take shelter of God, and He will give me a day and bread and so many things. He will give me freedom from being in trouble. He will give me money. He'll give me all these things I want. So for that, all right, I will take shelter. Otherwise, I will not take shelter. For getting something for me, then I can understand why I should take refuge. But if I don't get for me, then why should I take refuge? This is the way in which one thinks. One has to learn the art of understanding how to take shelter, the lotus feet of the Lord. Taking shelter is most important because there are so many things to be giving us trouble. There are so many things which give us trouble, therefore we have to take shelter. So many things give us trouble. So many problems may be there. So many disturbances may be there. So who's going to give us protection? We think that, the wife will give us protection. Well, nowadays it's just as true. The wife thinks the husband will give me protection. Nobody will give you protection. Only Krishna will protect. Like all these fallible fighting soldiers, wife or children or home or even nation or whatever, all fallible fighting soldiers. As soon as there's a big battle, boom, all these warriors finished. Nobody can give you shelter except Krishna. And Krishna may choose to give you shelter through the spiritual master, if one is lucky enough to have. And Krishna will give direct shelter for those who are fully absorbed in His lotus feet. He is there within your heart. He is within us. Krishna is there. Paramatma, He's there. And He is giving us good instruction. He is giving us guidance. He is giving us direction. But do we want to hear? There is a voice telling us, don't do like that. And then we think, I didn't hear anything. No, I'm just going to go on acting. But don't do like that. Nothing there. I didn't hear anything. No. Oh, how can I not do this? Ooh. We think like that. And the Super Soul is saying, all right, but you're not going to like it. We say, I'll worry about that later. Then one acts and reaction comes, boom. We go, oh, how miserable, Krishna, save me. Yeah, but Krishna was saving you all along. And after you go and act like a complete fool, then all the reactions come. Oh, then we surrender to Krishna very nicely. Oh, now I'm suffering. Oh, Krishna, please save me. Yeah, but where was that attitude when we were going to do the stupid thing which got us into trouble to begin with? Then we should have been listening too. Yes, it's not bad to surrender to Krishna when you're suffering, but it's much better to surrender to Krishna before you're suffering. And that way you can avoid doing something which is going to give you more suffering. Of course, suffering is going to come anyway from previous times. And then again, surrendering to Krishna is required. But we should surrender to Krishna not because we're suffering, but because of the desire to please Him and love Him. At least in the beginning you can surrender to Krishna because you're suffering. It's better than not surrendering to Krishna. But after you learn the art of surrendering to Krishna to some extent, we should do it to satisfy Him. We should do it in such a way as to satisfy Him. This we must do. Learning how to satisfy Krishna is the most important of all activities. Every devotee, it's his responsibility, each and every one of us. We have this very, very deep responsibility to satisfy Krishna. We shouldn't think, oh, well, he's satisfying Krishna, I don't have to worry about it. Sometimes we think like that. Oh, that person, he's satisfying Krishna, therefore that's okay. I don't have to satisfy Krishna because somebody else is doing it right now. But no, we have to satisfy Krishna. It's our responsibility to satisfy Krishna. It's our responsibility to satisfy the spiritual master by our service. It's not nobody else's. You can't look towards somebody else and say, he'll satisfy, therefore I don't have to worry. It's our responsibility. We must do it. We should all have deep in our hearts the understanding that it's up to us to learn how to satisfy the Supreme. It's up to us to understand what will satisfy Krishna and move in that direction and try to satisfy Him. Actually, this is the secret in spiritual life. If you can learn this secret of always trying to work for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord through His representatives, and that does not mean that we deny the satisfaction of the other devotees. We should also work in such a way that the devotees are taken care of, that the devotees are also nicely protected, and devotees are also being properly engaged. We have to handle all these things at once. Therefore, each and every one of us have a big responsibility. It's like if you say, oh, I just want to satisfy Krishna, and yet you see your fellow devotee is suffering in a certain way, and you don't do anything to help that person. Or you don't even try, or you don't even ask, what's the problem, what can I do? Well then, what kind of love is this for Krishna? This is called prakrita bhakta. He doesn't understand the other devotees. He only thinks about himself, prakrita bhakta. He doesn't care about others. He only sees Krishna, spiritual master, nothing more. Finished. But if you understand Krishna, and you understand how Krishna is in all of our hearts and taking care of us so nicely, so personally, then how can we think that we don't have to care about anybody else? If Krishna, who we love, is taking so much trouble to help others, don't you think He'll appreciate it when we also help others? Of course. He will appreciate it very much. Because he's also trying to help these persons, and if we cooperate with Krishna to help others, then we are helping Krishna in his work. And this is very good. Therefore, Krishna says, he who teaches Bhagavad Gita to his devotees is the most dear to him. In other words, those who are helping others in Krishna's mission become very, very dear to Krishna. And therefore Krishna takes care of them in all different ways. So it is extremely important that we learn the art of trying to satisfy Krishna and trying to help that which Krishna wants to be done. Learn the art of seeing what Krishna wants and move in that direction. Learn the art. It's an art. It's a perception. It's a consciousness. It's a way of thinking. You change your way of thinking to what does the Lord want. And we know, Prabhupada has already told us in all of these purports, so many books Prabhupada has given, and everywhere we're finding out what Krishna wants. What is the problem? It's very easy to know what Krishna wants. You don't have to speculate. He wants you to surrender, you nonsense. He wants us to surrender to his lotus feet and take full refuge and shelter in his lotus feet. And then he will lift us out of the cycle of birth and death. Lift us out of the ocean of material suffering conditions of life. And just like it is said in this verse, what is difficult to achieve for those determined men who have taken full shelter and refuge at the lotus feet of the Lord? Nothing. So we must do it. We must learn the art of taking full shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Then everything will be all right. So long as we are trying to arrange this and that according to simply material calculations, there'll always be trouble. One has to do deeply with the heart surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way, there'll never be trouble. If we can learn the art of surrendering deeply to Krishna from the heart, then we'll always somehow conquer over all difficulties. But if we just waste our time all day just criticizing this one, that one, the other one, always speaking badly about others, never trying to help others, simply trying to harm others, or just being an annoyance on others, then how are we going to become Krishna conscious? Then we're not a pure soul who's dear to everyone, and everyone won't be dear to us. Therefore, our Krishna consciousness will become clouded by all of these interpersonal problems. Your consciousness won't be clear because you'll have so many problems with others, because all the time we're just fault finding. Sometimes when we even speak about these things, we find the same persons who we're talking to think, yeah, I always knew that one, he was always thinking like this. We immediately think it's the other one we're talking about. Yeah, that one over there. In this way, when we're trying to speak about us, all of us, each and every one of us, we immediately point to someone else and say, yes, it's his fault. But in fact, it's our fault. The finger goes right here. It's us, rascals. All of us are guilty of the same thing. And so long as we don't try to make things in a proper way, there'll always be so many troubles. But we have our standards. It does not mean that we go outside and try to make friends with all the karmis who hate us, just because we don't want to have our consciousness clouded. And then they say, okay, very good, you're our friends, okay, wonderful, here, now why don't you kill your cows already? We have our standards. We don't move outside of our standards. But within those standards, everyone who agrees to live as Krishna's devotee under these proper standards, we should learn this art of trying to become freed from the fault-finding, criticizing mentality. Try to learn the art of surrender. Try to learn the art of actually satisfying Krishna. Try to learn the art of becoming a pure soul, a dear soul. Then, what difficulty is there to attain anything in this world? Because when Krishna wants, you will attain. That's all there is to it. Very simple. So now it is a question of learning the art of surrender. So, we should do this. After all, what is our whole life meant for if not that? What is our whole life meant for if not for learning the art of surrender? So we must learn this art and learn it well, then we'll be quite satisfied. All right, Hare Krishna.